All right, let's light this candle. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, we continue our exploration of live music production and feature two rock stars from that sector of the industry. I promise you will leave today smarter and more inspired than you arrived. More on that in a moment. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people in the amazing work they do day to day in the industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And please ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the conversation. Also, please make sure your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. I want to thank our sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this free. Thank you to First Horizon Bank, Bufkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Jim Digby, president and co-founder of the international nonprofit Event Safety Alliance. Jim has been at the leading edge advocating for policy development and for safety in live events since the organization's inception in 2012. A 37-year veteran of the arts and entertainment profession, Jim has been an industry leader for much of his career. A four-time recipient of the Production Manager Top Dog Award, recipient of the Parnelli Production Manager of the Year Award, and recipient of the Live Design Award for keeping the industry safe. Jim is also active on the board of Behind the Scenes Foundation, working to promote wide adoption of mental health first aid training across the industry. He's actively developing education tracks with a goal to improve the voyage from apprentice to journeyman within the live event industry. Jim's work as a production manager, major events producer, and project manager has him working directly with artists as diverse as Linkin Park, Enrique Iglesias, Meghan Trainor, Backstreet Boys, Blues Traveler, the Bolshoi Ballet, and most recently, he was the executive leadership team for Saudi Arabia's first ever three-day festival in 2018, 2019, and the delivery of the Dakar Rally concert event in 2020. He also is freshly back from another trip overseas, which we'll hear a little bit more about in a moment. And joining Jim as today's featured guest is my friend and fellow Nashvilleian, Eric Elwell. From early days as a musician to roles in the sales and business development in a Fortune 500 company, Eric has merged creative talent, business instinct, and entrepreneurial drive across diverse entertainment disciplines. Moving to Nashville in 1992 to pursue his audio engineering career, Eric quickly became a familiar face on Music Row. In the mid-2000s, while the record industry struggled with the changing landscape from digital content delivery, Eric found demand as a live front-of-house mixer, production manager, tour manager, working on many of the world's best-known venues ranging from Dodger Stadium to the White House in the US, Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa, South America, as well as Jay Leno's The Tonight Show, The Late Show with David Letterman, the Grammys, the Country Music Association CMA Awards, and many others. In 2018, Eric left a leading manufacturer of professional audio, lighting, and video equipment to launch Elevation Studios, a 26-acre creative campus of soundstage facilities and support services designed to meet the pre-tour production testing and rehearsal needs of today's top musical artists, as well as film, TV, streamed media content. The secure state-of-the-art facilities are ideally located in Nashville, the largest music business ecosystem in the world, and home to the top music and entertainment business, recording artists, and veteran production talent across every discipline. Construction commences in late 2021, with the first clients already booked in Q4 of 2022. Please welcome these two incredible rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Jim, please take it away.
You're going to start with me? Well, I was joking with Eric earlier. I'm like, if we're the smartest people in the room, or if I'm the smartest people in the room, it must be a small room. So, Tom, thank you so much for the invitation to be on your program. And, it's always important, I think, to explore what everyone else is doing and see how we can be additive to that process, or stay out of the way of that process, depending on your place. But I'm grateful to have the invitation to be here, and I'm especially grateful to be doing it with Eric. And I hope that we get to dig in a little bit on Eric's latest ventures. So do we want to start there, Tom, with Eric? Yep, let's go there, Eric. So, hey, Eric, tell us about yourself, will you?
Oh my gosh. Well, that blurb that Tom read was very generous and sounds like a lot of glorious things. It's really just a lot of sleepless nights. So yeah, I came to Nashville in '92 after growing up in a very small farm town in the middle of Kansas that most look like Mayberry, on Andy Griffith. Literally one flashing light at the end of town and nothing but wheat fields. And I could not wait to get out. Went to university thinking that I was going to be a rock star and play music the rest of my life. All they wanted to do was make me either into a music teacher or an orchestral percussionist. And I didn't want any part of it. I mean, this is the 80s, and man, it's MTV's here. So I got there and I found out how good the real musicians were and figured out I better switch hats. And so I went to a very, very small early foundation audio engineering school. Shout out to the recording workshop in Chillicothe, Ohio. And got just enough to get the training wheels on and figure out that I didn't know much. But that pathway led me to starting to make records on Music Row in Nashville. And 5 years in, I thought that's all I wanted to do was, work my way up to being, one of the legendary guys around here making records. And there was a fork in the road. A manager called me and said, "Hey, we hear from a friend of yours, a musician friend that has outed you, that you have live sound chops in your back pocket." And I said, "Well, we don't talk about that because us guys in the studio, we have white gloves, and those guys that move big black boxes have black gloves, and I don't own any of those anymore." And he said, "Well, it's pretty easy. We're gonna be flying private, and all you got to do is bring your briefcase and your golf clubs." And I said, "I'll be right there." And that was the start of the fork in the road. But along the way, so I kind of kept my mouth shut on both sides. And some people knew me as a live guy, and some people knew me as a studio guy on Music Row. And I didn't try to mingle those. They don't mingle much. They mingle more today than they did then. But that was sort of the fork in the road. And then as Napster came along and the digital platforms, and the record industry was not ready for that, and the cat was out of the bag, and they lost control of the IP, and suddenly there was we went back to a singles market instead of we were selling packages. Doesn't matter what the format is, vinyl or CD or whatever, with 10 cuts at a time. Suddenly we're selling singles again, and 90% of the revenue has gone right off the top. ADATs are coming along, and everybody's putting studio in their basement, and the work for legitimate engineers, no offense anyone, kind of got scarce. And at the same time, I was getting calls left and right to go make live shows sound like records. So I didn't think it was any different. I just kind of applied the same things I did in the studio and mixed it like I thought it was supposed to sound on the radio. And so that led me to a nice pathway in the live world. And then somebody found out I knew a little bit about each department, and suddenly I'm a production manager. And then somebody figured out that I could settle a show with Excel, and suddenly I'm a tour manager. It's you just do what you do.
You want to
So,
name drop? You want to name drop those artists or some of those artists, Eric?
oh gosh, I uh, I have found a really nice place with female artists, especially. It worked out. I knew kind of what their needs were, and so I spent a good amount of time with a very very lovely woman named Amy Grant, uh, getting her up and down the road and mixing the shows, and taking care of personnel issues, and the kindest person that I've ever worked for. And then I've been fortunate with some really other great singers, Jennifer Nettles in Sugarland, and Sarah Bareilles, and a few others. But it's interesting. You start to see, if you look through the history, a lot of female clients.
That's amazing. And then I think we met. Geez, midway through the Lincoln Park story arc. I think you were working for a major manufacturer. I'm not sure if I can say their name, but you were working for a major manufacturer at that time. I think, and Lincoln Park was being approached to perhaps have a relationship with that manufacturer.
Yeah, I had decided I was ready to burn my bus shoes, as it were, and get off the road. And I knew I had other skills that I thought could be valuable to maybe in the corporate world. And I got a call from the folks at JBL and Harman Professional, and they said, "Hey, we've got an opportunity for a U.S. sales manager." And I said, "Well, I'm not really a salesman." And then somebody reminded me, "You've been a freelancer all your life. You've always been a salesman." And that worked out pretty well. And then I got promoted to do some business development work, doing relationship stuff with Live Nation and AEG as key accounts, and taking care of key people like you on the road with Lincoln Park. We were we were putting out a new speaker system for
Yeah,
JBL.
yeah, I was going to say that was around well, first of all, that's Ken Van Druten and Tater that brought that relationship my way, right? Give shout outs
Right.
to where they're due, but
Yep.
that was at the time that the JBL VTEX box was coming out, right? The
Yeah,
VTX.
VTX was just coming out, and it was kind of a game changer for us. It was
Yeah,
a very it was a long overdue product to update and keep current, and we were pretty proud of it. And Ken was a big supporter.
yeah,
Pooch, shout out to Pooch if he's here.
yeah. We were on the Adamson box,
Right.
and we thought nothing would ever top that Adamson box. And then along comes that VTX. Holy mackerel. It was a game changer, and Pooch knew exactly what to do with it.
He did. He did.
Really exciting times from a sonic point of view.
Yeah, we were looking for somebody who really could mix as he can, and could really showcase the best attributes of that. We didn't want to put a race car in the hands of a
First to a
rookie.
driver.
Yeah, yeah. And so Pooch was definitely the right guy, and the whole Lincoln Park camp really embraced that they were getting something brand new, and it was a fantastic
Yeah,
relationship.
but not just brand new. I think the big selling point was it was brand new and it was amazing. I mean the Lincoln Park sound and that box really suited each other, and Pooch, and in the mix, of course, really suited each other. And it was an exciting time for Lincoln Park to be with that PA out front for sure.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. A JBL is sort of looked at as in many ways, as the Chevrolet of it's in every man's product, and it's easy to do that because it's such a broad product. They make everything from earbuds to ceiling speakers to whatever, so they kind of get a bad rap, and it wasn't really. They weren't regarded as somebody who could play at the very very top level with some of the other really great manufacturers. There's a great German manufacturer and a great French manufacturer who get a lot of the credit, and the Adamson product is fantastic.
Yeah. Wow.
And we really enjoyed being able to mix it up with those guys, and we did end up beating out all of the competition to put in the new systems at the Ryman Auditorium and the Opry House here, and it was a direct shootout
Yeah.
of putting the product side by side. So.
Yeah, I remember those days. You were living in LA, I think, at that time too, right?
Well, I was kind of commuting. I actually lived here in Nashville, but I was directly reporting to the headquarters in Northridge,
Yeah.
so I was back and forth quite a bit.
There was also wasn't there a 3D sound thing that was developing at that time as well? There was a studio with the ability to do kind of 3-dimensional sound exercises. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's been working on that technology. Usually, we're in R&D. We're at least 5 years ahead of what you're actually seeing released in the market, and there's a lot of great product out there that's just starting to emerge in the live sound. We're getting into Atmos and other technologies that are more expansive past the 5.1 theater stuff. You're going to see more surround and more multi-channel deployment in the live space as well.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
I know I would imagine a lot of the audience wants to know what you're up to in Nashville. I know that I want to know more about what you're up to in Nashville. It's not fair for me to set up the premise of that. I think you should do that, and then we can get into a dialogue around your vision and those you're working with, and the vision of Elevation Studios. Would you grace us with a deeper understanding of it?
Sure. Well, 2007, 2008, I started working with having some thoughts around the idea of these shows are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This is pre-JBL. The shows are getting bigger and the days aren't getting longer, and the distance between the shows isn't getting any shorter. It sounds like a song, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we decided that I was looking at this and going, okay, the shows are getting really complicated. I was part of the production at that point, and I saw things taking more and more time, and I thought, at some point, we're not going to be able to get enough dark days in an arena pre-first show to tack everything and to have the kind of pre-production, not just the rehearsals. The artists and the band can do that in almost anywhere, in a warehouse or whatever. In a studio, a regular recording studio, a rehearsal studio, they know what they need to do. But now we've got enormous thousands of square feet of video wall and thousands of square feet of staging and hundreds of moving lights that don't know where to point or what color to be or how to focus until we tell them. And the lighting and the video and the staging really have, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, have really accelerated the challenge for more time and redundant pathways. Failure is not an option. We're going to bounce this stuff down the road in a semi for 300 or 400 miles, and we're going to take it out of the truck the next day and expect it to work flawlessly. And when it doesn't, we need to be able to fix things quickly. But we don't have time to fix things quickly. It needs to work.
Maybe I can expand on that for a second,
please.
Eric. And that is, the old way, and to a large extent still the way, is that a show might not see a venue, a show under construction getting ready to tour might not see a venue that allows all the component parts to come together in one place and be rehearsed, other than potentially an arena that may just happen to have a few extra days in its schedule that coincides with the start of the tour, or some other multi-purpose venue that you're fighting for scheduling dates to get in and to demonstrate the integration, right? Because if you haven't put it all together until the first show, nobody's had a chance to integrate with each other, nor has the equipment. So I think if I'm deconstructing what you said correctly, the vision was, holy cow, the shows are getting so complex and the integration so much deeper than it's ever been. Can we still rely on the availability of a venue that might fit us as the place to rehearse? Or should we be considering purpose-built venues that are not venues, but purpose-built pre-production facilities that get us there?
Well, that's a great point. The lighting vendor can tack the light rig in their shop, and they can check all their pathways and all of their cabling, and build in redundant paths and all that, and that's great. But we can't fit all of the pieces and parts. We've got a sound vendor, a lighting vendor, a staging vendor, pyro and special effects, wardrobe, and things that have to happen. And all of these things have to be integrated and happen flawlessly. As a production manager, we probably have upwards of 1,000 lighting cues that happen, and triggering video rolls and visual elements. But there are thousands of cues that go on in a 3-hour show, and we all have to manually hit those in many cases and hit our marks, or all of that has to be rehearsed. We know the artist knows what they're going to do. They're going to run around and they're going to sing and they're going to hype the crowd. The band knows what to play. That's not the problem. It's all of us who have to hit a whole bunch of things. The circus just got really big, and it's a very theatrical thing.
Yeah, I would venture to say that unequivocally, for almost all of my career, there's not been a chance to be in a purpose-built facility and cause integration, which is not just equipment integration, it's human integration as well.
Right.
And hit the ground really prepared for tour. And so much so that I think we intentionally were scheduling dates somewhere where not Los Angeles and not New York,
right,
starting the tour in some other location, because we knew that the story arc to being smooth operation was going to be 3 to 5 shows. That's so right. We burned those first 3 as kind of extended rehearsal shows, which isn't necessarily fair to the audience. And not only that, but do you really want to be showing your warts to an audience, regardless of where they are, especially now with social media? So, that's another reason that we've got to get out of town on that first show 100%, which is even more justification for what you're doing with Elevation Studios.
We can't always start the tour in Poughkeepsie. And the problem is with these devices that we all have in our pockets now that are attached to a global web. If you have not to pick on the Spice Girls, but they had an unfortunate sequence of events with some audio problems a couple of years ago in their big stadium events. And unfortunately, the audio guy it wasn't his fault. There wasn't adequate rehearsal, and they may not be the singers that they once were, if they were. And it's, you're out in front of the PA. It's a no-win situation, but without the time to work out all of these things in advance and being live in front of the public, you have a couple of bad shows, and that lights up YouTube, and you can just watch the ticket sales drop. That's real money out the door.
No question. Give us an overview of Elevation Studios. Let the world know what's coming, please.
Sure. We like to say it's a sandbox for the industry. It's a private campus type facility that is not open to the public, and we're building arenas without seats. That's what touring artists need, is a building that full scale replicates the situation they're going to see in either the theater aspect or the arena aspect. You're going to need, and we know from touring arenas, they never look the same as far as the physical building or whatever. But there's one commonality to all arenas, and it's that it for the most part, they are 99% of them are built around the footprint of an NHL hockey rink. And in most cases, we go in and the hockey dashers are still there. They've covered the ice, but we're working on top of the ice. And that's the bottom line is 200 feet by 85 feet is the space that you've got to bring in dozens, sometimes up to as many as 30 or 40 semis of gear in the door, across usually 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 loading docks. It takes hundreds of people to do it, and we get to turn a sports arena that is just a raw black box with seats into a music venue for one day. So that's exactly what we've given them is 200 by 125 plus loading docks plus some extra room to work, and steel that would effectively support over 100 F-150 pickups to suspend from the ceiling at 70 feet. So, and the box itself is 90 feet high.
Yeah.
So it really is an arena without seats.
The Ford Auto Show probably does suspend 100, 150 pickup trucks, right?
Right.
So
right.
we cleared this question earlier, Eric. So in case there's a jaw drop in our audience, but it's not dissimilar in some way to what's happening at Rock Lidditz campus in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're you've got a group of people both with one of the largest sound company in the world and one of the premier staging manufacturers in the world that coexisted already on a campus in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, just 90 miles to the west of Philadelphia, very close to where you are.
That's right.
And they had need for large scale space and all of that. And it's like, well, if we need the space and we know our clients need the space, let's build the space. And they've done a fantastic job of kind of breaking the ice and paving the way for, oh yeah, this really is a need. And the clients get to see how much better, how much more efficient. We talked about just a moment ago about the challenges of trying to integrate all of these different tribes that are coming together from different disciplines and getting it into a show. But what has also become tragically apparent is now we've got to prepare for things falling, stages collapsing. We've got to prepare for weather. We've got to prepare for active shooter drills. I hate to say that, but we need to be prepared for things that just aren't going to go right. And that's where I'm really passionate about what you and the Event Safety Alliance are doing.
Well, I think one of the things that that Elevation Studios and Rock Lidditz are solving for is a future state of the industry that we have not yet, by and large, embraced. And in my view, that future state of the industry is we're much more community and we're much more connected department to department, trade craft to trade craft than we currently treat our projects. And the because for that is this integration idea that we've been discussing. And, the shows are more complex. We count more and more on each other's workflow to ensure the outcome we need before door time. It used to be fairly simple: get the stage built, get the rigging up, get the stage built, get the PA flown, get the lights in, get the video wall up if that was the time you're in, get it all working, and then take it all out. That workflow had a lot less integration than the complex shows of today. And I think, integration isn't just about the equipment in this instance. It's about the community. It's about the tribe on the road. And it's about the denizen tribe at home that supports the tribe on the road. And so when we have an opportunity like Elevation Studios to plug everybody into the same space for a given number of days to load it in, practice loading it in, practice loading it out, understand the workflow, the time stream for folks to get equipment built and tied into one another, that feeds into the complexity of tomorrow's shows. So sorry, it's a very complicated thought process, but the shows can get more complicated now because we've got elevation, because we
Yeah,
have the
we
time to
may not be
integrate. So
solving a problem here.
you may
We
be
could very
creating one.
well opening Pandora's box.
Yeah, yeah. Trey Merritt just said it's the world's largest dysfunctional family. Couldn't be more, couldn't be more right.
Right.
And Trey, I mean, to your point, Trey, part of the reason we're dysfunctional, I think, is that by the time we get on the road, we're already running, right? We don't have a chance to kind of warm up and get to know each other. We're just plopped down into this machine that's at full speed ahead. And the hope, I think, in some way, and maybe it's kind of a utopian hope, is that by having this facility where we can spend more time together on our different trade crafts, we can be a little more functional than the dysfunctionality. Although I embrace the dysfunctionality, as I know most of us do.
You have to be a carny and want to be a part of the circus
Yeah,
to sign up for this. But you don't go to an Olympic sport at the top of your game and plop 8 guys or ladies in the boat and expect them to all row in sync.
yeah,
It takes time to work up to that, and we wouldn't ship a whole container full of car parts and assemble the car in the parking lot of the dealership either.
yeah,
And like, well, that one's going to be ready tomorrow. Come back tomorrow and look at it. It's like that doesn't work.
yeah,
We've got to have some place to build um, great entertainment and do it safely.
yeah, yeah. And I think it does to some extent feed a more complex environment for shows. All the stakeholders get a chance to immerse with each other, and it's in that process where new ideas come from as well, for new technology and new ways of doing things, and hopefully more collaborative workspace as well. So I applaud you in Elevation Studios. When's it going to open?
Well, we're set to break ground fourth quarter of this year. We're going to build one large stage, one arena-sized stage, as fast as we possibly can. The design build company that is involved with it tells us that we've got about 3 months worth of dirt work and another 9 months to finish out the first stage. So we're looking at the fourth quarter of 22 for our grand opening.
Anybody else feel like that's pretty aggressive? I mean, I don't doubt you, but holy cow, that's aggressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, they're throwing a lot at it, and then we'll continue with another large stage and 2 small stages and 40,000 square feet of what I'm affectionately referring to as the hub. Uh, as fast as we can behind that, we're going to do portables as far as offices to start with, just because we've got to have functional
sure.
workspace from the get-go. But eventually, there will be event space, there will be vendor office space, there will be, of course, executive and operational offices and functions. We'll have full service 24/7 catering, so nobody has to go off property. It will feel very much like a tour. And if you're programming lights at 3 o'clock in the morning and you need a sandwich, it's going to be ready for you.
That's amazing. Will you be building a facility for landing vendors, a full vendor operation, or just vendor offices? Would you?
The beauty of Nashville, which is kind of a departure from the Rock Lidditz model, is that we have the deepest pool of both production vendors of every stripe in all departments, and we have trucking and busing. There's over 500 tour buses based in Nashville. We have hundreds of tour trucks and trucking companies. So we're gonna just have the offices where people can service their clients without
Got it.
actually having to bring their whole warehouse on property.
Yeah. Why build it if it's already built 20 miles up the road, right? So,
Everything is 30 minutes away in Nashville.
yeah,
So it's a really beautiful situation. We've got the deepest pool of both vendors and technical talent, and
right.
that's not changing. Nashville has become an it city, and for a lot of reasons, we've got a lot of growth. but it's a place where all of the folks can still afford to live,
Yeah.
and can own their own homes. And there's a different style of touring which we could explore from Nashville. It's kind of an interesting weekend warrior scenario. I've done it for many, many years, but we don't leave and depart for a
Months
month
at a
or
time.
two, like some tours do that depart out of the coast. We tend to get on the bus on Wednesday night. We overnight to a show, and in fact, we put the kids to bed on Wednesday night, and we get on the bus at midnight. We wake up in another city on Thursday. We do a show. We get back on the bus. We wake up in another city on Friday. We do a show. A singer can't sing 7 nights a week,
Yeah.
and so you're at best you've got 3 good nights, and then they need a break.
Could
And
we
so
be
it's
using one
really
or
well.
two? Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So that's it.
Could we be using one or two of those non-show days as training days? Could we create a little school there, academy?
Oh, absolutely. While you've got people in town, you've already either, the folks that aren't locally based have already come in, and we have a 1 day ground school, or we go do a refresher on how this works, or we have an opportunity to pull couple of consoles off the back of the truck and update software and just go through some things that didn't work right. So we're not fixing it on show days.
A lot of people very excited to get involved with you, Eric, based on the chats here. What employment opportunities exist at the facility, and how do they help you out? How do they get in touch with you?
I'll invite everybody to send resumes. I'm keeping every resume I get. The response has been pretty overwhelming so far, both inside the U.S. and even outside the U.S. But we haven't even started looking at the staffing process on the executive side. Tom's going to be involved in that to help us find. I forgot to tell you that, Tom. To help us find some of the right executive and management talent. And then we're probably going to have a first round. I imagine when we open just one building, we'll probably have 12 to 15 people employed between security and operations. We'll partner with a food and beverage partner because I don't want to be in the restaurant business, but we'll figure all of that out, and then it's going to grow from there. And I think by the time we get 4 stages open, we'll be 25 or 30 people.
Amazing. The mention of staff reminds me that we wanted to talk about the shortage of staff. The fact that we're having, let's maybe shift the conversation to what's going on now in the industry, and what your vision is for how we might solve some of these things. And the fact that we've got tours. I think you said we've got tours launching, and then suddenly realizing there's not enough people to support them.
Yeah, well, COVID has taken a lot of people out of the workforce. People had a complete stoppage. As you know, this industry was the first to stop, and it'll be the last to reopen fully because our business is around large groups of people, and that just isn't permissible at this point. It's tenuous at best, even with all the safety precautions. So we want to figure out how to fill the gaps. A lot of people have, especially senior people, the very experienced people who had a lot of years of training or cross collateralized experience in building things. Your stage carpenters and electricians, and a lot of those folks have very they have great skills that apply to construction and a lot of other management of systems. We don't realize, we think that these quote unquote roadies are just a bunch of carnies, but the truth of the matter is They learn skills of almost military execution and a zero fail kind of workflow and work ethic. And those people are really, really valuable when you need a situation where you got to go into a foxhole. I'll take my brothers on the road and sisters on the road anytime,
Yeah.
because that's the way we operate. Is there's $5 million worth of tickets outside the door, and we are going to open the doors at 6 o'clock. And if you can't be a part of that and get on board with that, there's somebody waiting behind you who will. So
Yeah. I
um,
think what you describe is that, we're a skilled workforce, regardless of what the outside world looks in and sees when they hear roadie or, event professional, regardless of what they see. We are absolutely a skilled workforce in
yeah,
very, very unique ways that don't turn up in some instances in any other industry on the planet, right? So what we're suffering right now because of COVID is a loss of that skilled workforce to some extent.
right.
If I'm somebody who's had to find a recovery job or a hold me over job because of COVID, and I get an opportunity to go work a festival or a tour right now, and COVID's still not resolved,
Yeah.
why would I leave that thing that's keeping my family on balance until I know for sure the industry is back at full strength? And while some are out there doing shows right now and to differing effects, differing outcomes, but they're out there doing shows. The question is, especially now with this Delta variant and the next thing and the next thing, how long will that go on before we have to stop again? Hopefully we don't have to stop again. But I guess to address the missing persons element, I'm not coming back to work until I know it's going to sustain me again, right? That's what many people are thinking.
That's right. That's right. Whether it's a gig at Home Depot, or if people have found a lot of opportunities in other executable kind of things. And you're right. It's a very skilled workforce in a trade-oriented sense, but they're coming with critical thought processes too. That there's a lot of intellect that these guys don't always get credit for, and they know how to get things done. They know how to work with other people and make decisions on the spot that are good decisions. And so we've got a shortage of especially leadership. Some guys that are saying, I've kind of done my tour of duty, and I've got to think about my family, and insurance and benefits and things like that are important. And so we've got to find. We're going to have to train a lot of new folks in this industry. There's a real shortage right now. I'm hearing of festivals with the potential of getting canceled because they cannot find enough qualified workforce.
So it sounds like there's a short, medium, and long-term problem around the workforce. Yeah. And that the short-term problem is we've got shows happening now
Right.
that both vendors and shows, and producer staff, be that artist or festival, aren't able to find enough people to support those shows. That's what you described. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The short term problem is we're already out of people, and there's a bit of a desperation amongst some of the leaders in the industry about what are we going to do about this. And we've still got talent sitting on the sidelines. Right now, there's a lot of talent that wants to go out and cannot find buses, or physically cannot find bus drivers. There's a driver shortage. There's a crew shortage. So we've got to fix that, and that's a longer range issue, as you said. We've got to really rethink how we train and how we get people qualified and up to speed quickly and with the right skill sets. It's not just brute force. I need somebody to lift this. I need
Right.
somebody to know what they're doing and execute their part of being a team.
Right. So we described the short-term problem as what can we do about the shows that are happening now? Where can we feed that pipeline? The
Right.
medium-term problem is getting us, by some extent, is getting us through this COVID period. Can we get to a place where we can sustain the workforce and sustain shows while COVID is still a prevalent thing. And then the longer term problem is, how do we redefine our workforce so that the high level of skills that we set into each trade craft are interpretable to the outside world? So should we hit another pandemic, God forbid, should we hit another one, could our workforce more easily find themselves replanted into another place because our skill set is recognized in a greater way by the outside world? And I think that's one of the other problems we're trying to solve for is, can we recraft the skills of a production manager into that of a project manager, which has a much greater uptake across multiple industries beyond the live event industry? Same thing as a tour manager, as a logistics manager. There's ways to redefine what we already do, the skills we already have, and get them recognized by the rest of the world. That, to me, I think, is the longer problem. How do you feel that fits in?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. There's a big problem with recognition, and it's there is no the film and TV industry has a great program for curating and cultivating talent through both. It's not just acting school, but there are schools, a good number of schools that have production curricula that cultivates all of, and then they have the Directors Guild and the Producers Guild and all these things that have mentorships and programs to cultivate the next generation of talent. This industry is a relatively young industry. This whole roadie rock and roll thing kind of bloomed out of the Woodstock era, and even
solved it as we went.
Right. We just made it up, and we just hired the best problem solvers and MacGyvers we could find, who would stay semi sober and show up in the morning.
One of those two things.
Yeah. So it's a challenge that now we've made a quantum leap of technology and skill demands that everybody has sort of backed into. It's like, well, hell, now I have to learn this. And we just figured it out on our off time to make ourselves more valuable and applicable to our clients. But there's not a good program that is feeding the kind of people that we need in the academic world. And we're going to have to cultivate that.
Yeah, I've been speaking about that in the sense that we don't have a prescribed voyage from apprentice to journeyman, right? The film and television industry has a very defined voyage to get from one to the next. And in fact, that journey takes years, and in some instances, a decade before you get to be the thing you aspire to be. Ours is kind of throw and go, which is thrilling. And it's worked for 50 or 60 years, but with the increased complexity and the increased integration and the increased accountability and the increased exposure via the social media channels and everything else, and the increased concern for mental health and human resources and diversity, all of these key words are more relevant and prevalent in our industry than they've ever been. And therefore, perhaps it's time for us to shift to a more known journey from apprentice to journeyman, right? A more known and benchmarked with some sort of professional accreditation place where once you've achieved this professional accreditation, you now have the qualifications required for stage management, for instance. It's not unlike what's happening in other sectors in the entertainment space, just not ours yet.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a handful of training programs that are sort of ad hoc. In many cases, they're based around industry organizations, the ESTA and some other people who have, but in most cases, manufacturers are having to hold their own training classes on PA system alignment, and you sort of learn from each other just the fundamentals of how to operate and how to elevate. The education is almost all self-taught, and and there is no validation other than, hey, I trust my buddy and he says you're great, you want to go on this tour.
Yeah.
But that's how you work your way up, and there's
Currently.
no qualifications
Yeah.
whatsoever.
The
We've
discussion
got
that's going,
skill standards, like you said.
yeah, the discussion that's going on in the chat is around, the millennial generation looking at our industry and going, "What? How do you get there?" And
Right.
that's a true life experience that I've heard from some of the young people I've been fortunate enough to mentor around. Is I don't understand, why is there no, why isn't there a job description for this, or why isn't there a learning path to get to this place? But I do know that many, because of COVID and some have seen that there is a greater value to being able to create professional designations that do stand up and are comparables to other industries, so that if we have another shutdown like this, we can take those accreditations and those skill sets and apply them elsewhere, and
Right.
be more survivable, more sustainable because of it.
I would never ever have claimed to be the best mixer in the world or the best engineer. I'm not fit to coil the cables of some of the folks on this chat. But the bottom line is, I always took seriously the need for a diverse skill set, and to constantly um, cast a wider net.
Evolve, yeah.
And that is literally why, I had clients as tour managers who had no idea I knew where the power button on the console was. But that's fine. I don't, in that case, I'm just hired to do a job, and I was qualified to do the job, or at least somebody thought I was, and that's what I was there for. Fill your role, stay in your lane.
Yeah, yeah. But I think we would benefit as an industry from a different kind of growth trajectory than we currently have, and an education track for the trade craft roles already kind of have carve outs for education that are specific to the trade craft. It's more the soft skills and the leadership skills that we don't really benchmark in any kind of learning at this point in time, any kind of learning outcomes at this point in time. So while there's fantastic ways for riggers to learn to be excellent riggers, there's not much for leaders to learn to be excellent leaders. And
Yes.
I don't think we can ask more of the troops until we as leaders have professional learning opportunities in front of us.
That's so well said. And to be a leader, you have that's not an innate skill set. It's not like being a head coach and just barking orders and drop and give me 20, and that's not a leader.
Yeah.
And we've got to start taking care of people, because they've got lives at home. They've got usually families that are trying to make it without them physically there. And there's a lot of you never know what someone else is going through. And to be a great leader, you've got to have one eye always on that compassion for what's going on besides just the present and where you are physically today. So I think that leadership, especially, and that's where we've lost a lot of people because they had transferable skills. But we've got to figure out how to be better leaders and train people to be better leaders and to see problems before they emerge, not just fix them.
Let's connect those dots, because that's important, Eric, really important. Let's connect those dots back to the overarching theme of right now and the shortages. And you hit it on the head. Everybody's had their own journey through COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And now more than ever, compassionate leadership and servant leadership and authentic leadership is where we need to be. And what does that mean? Well, that means every individual has had their own survival story right now that's different from the next one person to the right, one person to the left. And
Right.
that's what it's been survival. So when they come back to work, not only have they poor muscle memory, their instinctive behaviors have disappeared, their intuitive behaviors, their natural ability to do things has disappeared. And that internal self-check mechanism, am I doing this right, is a distant memory from when we last did gigs. So,
Right.
alongside the Event Safety Alliance are many of the entertainment insurance industries who are very worried about this next period of time, however long that might be, while we're coming out of this stasis and back to work. And geez, did we remember to tie off? Did that forklift driver remember to look over his shoulder before he backed up? And did the caterer make sure that the food contamination aspects were well looked after? Did the manager make sure that everybody had room for their own personal experience coming back to work? That's the space we're entering right now. And
Yeah.
there are some boasting about, well, everything's just fine. We went back to work and nothing's changed. Well, that's good. We're all going to have different journeys. There is a large part of us who are suffering from the survival we've just had to do and being asked to come back into 12 and 16-hour days, and without time to rechurn those engines and reprime the pump and find that footing again that we need so we don't hurt ourselves or anybody else around us. So we want those leaders, the ones that are coming back to it, to make room for that, to be accepting of that.
Not to turn anybody off, but we got to hold space for that. And to there's a lot of people who are flooded. Their minds are flooded with call it PTSD, call it a lot of things. We're working in a pretty sophisticated, reflexive kind of environment. When your mind is flooded with a challenge at home, or just what you've been through to get back to work, and you're thinking about the bills at home, and you're thinking about the fact that you're going into an arena of 20,000 people, 40% of which, at least 40% of which, are not vaccinated, and that there's you're walking into a situation that can have a lot of mental impact, or a lot of trauma to it, about what's present, what's next, what you've been through, and we got to hold space for that.
Yeah, and all of those journeys are unique unto themselves, right? That's the thing. We can't apply our bias to the rest of our team. We have to take the space to get to know what that person's got through, whatever portion of it they need to share, and make sure that we're showing support and empathy for that person's journey, that individual's journey, as well as the team journey. And I think that's what plays into this kind of positivity of leadership. I think you say that in the morning with the toolbox talk. You say, hey, look, we've all been through the shit, and we're all going to be okay. But let's slow down. The one thing we can't change is doors are always going to be at X, right? Yeah. The workday can't get any different from what we've seen it, but we can get more compassionate toward each other, and we can be looking out for each other to some extent to make sure somebody doesn't forget to clip in, for example. Whereas before we put our blinders on and I did PA and I looked at PA and that was all I looked at. Maybe now the call to work is let's look out for each other and our gigs, right? So I think that's why we're teaching the mental health first aid training. That's why behind the scenes charity brought up did the study and decided that mental health first aid training was important. That program is 20 years old now. It's just never been applied directly to the entertainment space. They've put something like the National Council for Mental Health has put something like 4 million people through this training. Yeah. And it's the best we have as a backstop right now. It's a triage component in case someone goes into crisis mode. While we're working together, this is at least a thing like CPR where you can get in there with that person. You can help that person get centered enough to get ready enough to get to a place where there's more help. You don't become a therapist by any means by taking this training, but you at least know how to handle an emergent situation and get that person to help.
It's the next right step when somebody's in crisis. Absolutely. And I'm thrilled to have gone through that training. I know we're tight on time and up against our hour, but do we need to take any questions? Or I definitely want to make sure that you recap some of the resources for both the Event Safety Alliance and the mental health training and all of that. It's an open door policy. I know that, and we're always looking for people to align and come aboard.
Tom, can we take an extra minute on that?
Yeah, please. In fact, please post any URLs in the chat that you want to direct the audience toward.
Oh, that's going to be hard to talk and do that at the same time.
I'll type while you're talking.
Okay, so we just described the mental health first aid training, which is a 3-year certificate program that's deliverable in one day. The Behind the Scenes Foundation did not develop the training, but they adapted the training from its current place to one which is more suitable to live event professionals, and it's available online, behindthescenescharity.org, and some other URL address components after it. I'll try to grab it and put it in. And that is really meant to be the triage element. That's, crisis is occurring. I know how to step in, much like you would with CPR, and get this person to professional help. The other end of that, which is equally as exciting and equally as valuable, is the preventative measures. And there's been a number of folks who are working on developing preventative measures, either before tour or at the vendor warehouse or at the rehearsal facility. The backline care. I'm going to mention a few at the risk of not getting to everyone. The Rhodey Clinic, Boer Newman and Associates have written a white paper that really dissects who we are as a community and how we can kind of preemptively address our mental health in the workspace. What are the tools we can use? Exercise, diet, sleep, all of those things to lead to a more stable environment for ourselves and for the team. Optimized touring, Janine Diaz is putting together a program similar to that. So those preventative measures combined with the triage measure of mental health first aid give us nice bookends to try to be better on the work site. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long time before we can shorten the workday. It's going to be a long time before we can shorten the poor eating habits. But the more we know about what's going on in our brain, and the more we can provide measures which calm that noise down a little bit, hopefully the stronger we become, right? Yeah. I know it was a big learning moment for me to understand that the high that I get when the house lights go off and my hair stands on end, that's my own body giving me a hit of drugs, right? That's dopamine and adrenaline and cortisol, all those fun things that my body's creating. And that the chase after the show and after the adrenaline was, after that natural high was done, was to, using artificial highs, was to sustain the good I felt at door time. So, I think once you can kind of define that, at least for me, once I was able to define that, I was like, okay, that's the trigger. And that helped me to get a little bit more thoughtful about the things I was doing after the show and on the days off. So anyhow, I digress. The idea of us being more compassionate and more in tune to each other's individual needs, and the fact that we're coming out of a COVID-induced PTSD, and that we have to work as a community, as a family, as a dysfunctional family, as Trey said, to support each other. I think if we can hold on to that from COVID, then we'll be better in the long term for sure.
Yeah, amen. Absolutely. Well, as you know, I'm a big fan of the Event Safety Alliance. I'm thrilled to have gone through the training course for mental health first aid. There's a stat that I think is just so remarkable that I don't want to misquote, so I'll let you do it, about how many, what's you're more X times more likely to encounter a mental health crisis than a heart attack.
Yeah.
What is that?
That stat came from Brian Honeycutt, who currently is the industry's, the only person with an entertainment history who's teaching the mental health first aid. Right. And I don't recall what the number was, but it was, you are significantly more likely to be able to help someone with mental health first aid training because the frequency of those events than you are with CPR, because the frequency of those events are less. It's simple math, right?
Don't hold me to this, but I think Brian said it's like a 7-to-1 ratio. They believe that you're going to be 7 times more likely to be confronted with an emergency crisis of mental health capacity than a CPR. And yet we all, most of us, know at least the fundamentals of CPR. Whether we keep it up or not, we were instinctively trained with these concepts in school and through civic organizations and everything else. And yet I think our society is just waking up to the fact that obviously mental health has been a taboo for a long time. And it's time to talk about it and make sure that everybody's okay. Everybody
Yeah.
gets the help that they need. It doesn't make you broken. It just, it's not any more challenging than getting a cold. Sometimes we need to be looked after.
That's the other advantage of this training is it helps to destigmatize and give you the tools to be a participant in the destigmatization, if there is such a word, of this mental health process, right? It's normal. It happens to everyone, and everyone's journey with mental health is different, and therefore requires a different thing to detangle it if it needs detangling. So the course has many positive outcomes. That's one of them. The other is knowing how to be a helper, knowing how to be a brother or sister to someone who's having this kind of difficulty. And I would add, if I can, for just another minute, that I put in the link, the behind the scenes charity, the mental health first aid training. I saw that somebody else posted the general one, but I also added the mental health first aid one from behind the scenes. On that page, there's also a suicide prevention resource from behind the scenes. There's stop bullying and harassment. There's a template for toolbox. Yeah, there's a template for toolbox talks so that you can address these sort of things at the top of the day. There's an entertainment industry therapist finder, which is stocked with therapists who understand our workflow and understand the things that we go through every day. There's an anonymous online self-assessment tool so you can kind of check yourself. And there's a Be Seen, Be Heard peer-to-peer chat app, all on this behind the scenes charity website. All tools built by people like us for people like us.
Yeah.
An incredible resource for everyone.
Yeah.
And Tom, at the Event Safety Alliance, that's all right. At the Event Safety Alliance end, since we're shamelessly plugging things, our conference, our annual summit is coming up first week of December. We're a hybrid, so virtual and online. So it's second year of hybrid.
We've had Rocklititz, right?
At Rocklititz, we've had
Fantastic.
The best attendance numbers we've ever seen in last year's hybrid event. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw ourselves down there at Elevation Studios sometime in the near future as well.
You absolutely will. The door is open, and I'm hoping to host a lot of events. In Nashville, we're more centrally located and easy access for maybe some folks from the West Coast. And so, we're all about all of the training and collaboration we can get.
I just saw someone post nothing for Europe, but let me just quickly see if I can find the link for the PSA in Europe, which is similar to some of the stuff that we're doing. I'll find it. Shoot. But there are some resources in Europe. There's certainly the mental health first aid training, I think, is in more than 20 countries by this National Council for Mental Wellbeing. The resources are there in Europe as well. We just need to find them for you.
Yeah, it's a different organization in the UK, isn't it, than behind the scenes?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, let me jump in here. I'm afraid we are out of time. However, this has been a great session. I can't thank you both enough for both your time, everything you've done to make the music industry kind of just go, but then really what you're working on present day. Eric, I can't wait for you to start moving dirt on Elevation. It's going to be so exciting. And Jim, to all the work that you've been doing behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and Event Safety Alliance, just carry forward, gentlemen, and please keep doing it.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, Tom. And everybody's welcome to join the Event Safety Alliance. It's a nonprofit organization supporting our industry.
All right, everyone take note of that. To the audience, thank you for your continued patronage here. Let me close with my normal closing, and that is be nice to each other and get a shot. The sooner you get a shot, the sooner we can all party at a concert together. And with that, I will close it down. I love it. Be safe, folks. Talk soon.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.